We're live from Sunset Park in Brooklyn, the HSS Training Center, the home of the Brooklyn Nets. It is 2019 Nets Training Camp, live in Brooklyn, alongside the capper, Tim Capstraw. I'm Chris Carrino, another season with you again here with the Nets, your Nets radio team, and capper. We have been through a lot of years with this Nets team over the years. Here in Brooklyn, a number of teams have come through, but there has been no team that is more highly anticipated than what we're going to see here this season with the 2019-20 Nets. It was probably the most eventful offseason this franchise has had in decades. We know we have to wait a little bit before Kevin Durant joins the fray, but Kyrie Irving is here, and it's a team that got everybody excited a bit last year, and now has them even more excited.
It sure does. Not all fans, New York basketball in general. The excitement surrounding the Brooklyn Nets cannot be overstated. It is the energy, the life, the big name recognition. It's got this program. We had seen it grow over the last couple of years, Chris, but this is a whole nother level.
You see 8 off-season additions to a team that went to the playoffs last year and turned around half their roster. But when you look at some of those names on there, and Kevin Durant, DeAndre Jordan, Kyrie Irving, and then some pieces like Garrett Temple, David Nwaba, Taurean Prince, those are guys that are going to be relied on early. We know that Kevin Durant is not going to be a part of the team we anticipate throughout this season. But what is the ceiling for this net team? How much do those off-season additions mean to how far they can go this season?
Well, you know, the standards are high now, let's be honest. They made the playoffs last year, but when you have a talent like Kyrie Irving orchestrating a team, how much better can he make all those players around him? The presence of a DeAndre Jordan, along with the players that the Nets have had the last few years who continue to ascend, healthy Karis LeVert. No doubt, just an awful lot of excitement regarding the different players that are returning to this team.
Spencer Dinwiddie, we know he played a key role in trying to recruit some of these guys here. Joe Harris has had a busy offseason. We're going to speak with Joe in just a little bit. You see the other names on there. I'm going to skip a couple because I want to get back to them. Rodions Kurucs and John and Musa had good developing rookie seasons. We think they'll be a key pieces going forward, and Theo Pinson as well. Jared Allen, number one. Normally, we talked about last year when guys go from their second year to their third year, what a big difference and a big leap that could make. And we saw that with Karis LeVert before the injury last year. When guys go from year 2 to year 3, it really can determine what kind of player we're going to see them be in the NBA. And we know we saw that with Karis LeVert. Will Jared Allen make a similar jump in comparison to what LeVert did last year?
I get the feeling he's going to. I mean, he has the help of having a DeAndre Jordan along with him, so that will guide him and be helpful. But, Chris, you can just see the way he walks around now, the comfort level, how he looked in Summer League, and just the confidence. Yes, it's a strength thing. You get a little bigger, you're a little bit more stronger. You get more experience, but there just becomes a feeling about certain guys. And I think they nailed it on Jared Allen. I think he's just going to have a brilliant career. He's a modern-day big man in the NBA, and he can perform that role at a very high level.
And I think what you're seeing now, too, Tim, we put up the key additions and the guys who were left over from last year. There was a big turnaround this year in the roster, but they're trying to set themselves up so that this team moving forward will have the key pieces in place, and they don't have to get as many pieces getting used to each other as they are this year in training camp. That has been sort of the theme of training camp this year, is getting all these new players accustomed to one another. One guy who was here last year who has developed into a star for this team, he burst onto the scene last year as the leading three-point shooter, won the three-point shootout. This year was part of Team USA. Joe Harris will join us right after this. Joe will be shooting on a new court this year, Capper. Let's get a little look at what Barclays Center is going to look like this season.
New York is today a Brooklyn Nets town.
Back here in Brooklyn, Chris Carrino, Tim Capstraw, and Joe Harris joining us right now. Joe, are you tired?
No.
You went to China?
Nah, it took me about a week to get, my clock adjusted, but I've sort of eased my way into training camp. I was getting good shape just from, playing throughout the World Cup. Just need a little bit of time to recover from the travel, but ready to go now, ready to get back to China.
You're on the China shuttle. You go back and forth.
Yeah,
It's all right.
yeah.
You'll be the one guy used to it. Tell us a little bit about that USA experience. It had to be a thrill for you to be a part of that.
Yeah.
And what did it mean to you as a player?
First and foremost, just having the opportunity to wear USA across your chest, that's been a dream of mine for a long time. So it was a very surreal experience. Get a chance to play with some of the best coaches in this game. Pop is one of the more legendary coaches in the history of the game. You build a unique bond with all the guys on the team as well. That's kind of one of the biggest takeaways, honestly, was the bond that you kind of experience with those guys. The friendships, those are something that are gonna last forever. Guys that you might not have otherwise known that well. You play against them, been around them a lot, but definitely unbelievable experience. It's a long grind, 50+ days together, but something that I'm gonna have memories of for a long time.
Joe, do you have to be careful right now as far as coming back and maybe playing too much basketball? Do you got to ease your way back into things, or are you just going full throttle? Because we know that's how you like to go.
Yeah, it's hard because, when I do get out and play, I want to compete, and I'm not going to, let off the gas at all. I'm going to compete every possession, but it is certainly one of those things where, performance has sort of monitored me as I've been back. I'm not playing full go necessarily every day. Today was actually my first day being able to kind of go through and do everything. And then there was a little bit of monitoring throughout the preseason, but it's just, you got to understand how long the season is. Sure. And where the expectations for this team are at, what we hope to do later in the season. And, that's sort of the top priority, is making sure that you have that longevity and that you're not sort of plateauing at any point during the year.
Sure.
Joe, how about training camp so far? We know we're trying to incorporate some of the new players, some of your new teammates. You went through a whole Team USA training camp, and then coming out here now in Brooklyn. But how do you feel some of the new pieces are coming together here in Brooklyn?
Honestly, it's been a really seamless transition. It's even exceeded my expectations coming into it. Kyrie, DeAndre, Torian, you name it. Obviously, there's only 4 guys that are returning back from last year's team, 6 guys. But everybody else has really adapted quickly. They bought in to Kenny, his philosophy, and guys are competing. That's the one big takeaway, is that we have a really high caliber players on this roster, but guys are going at each other, competing. We got a chance to scrimmage today, and it was high level. Guys weren't backing down from one another. They're really making each other better, and that's exactly what you want to see at this point in the year. In training camp to get ready for the preseason, but guys are ready to go.
How different is it, or how interesting is it to have a guy like Kevin Durant watching practice all the time?
It's pretty interesting to have Kev kind of just hovering around.
He's a presence, right?
He's certainly a presence, but Kev is. He's got an unbelievable basketball mind. His input is so valuable. Even though we don't have him playing, and it's unfortunate, he adds a lot to this team, just being able to kind of coach from the side and help guys out. And he's taken on that role. That's the thing I've been impressed with too. He's obviously going through his rehab, doing a number of stuff, but he's engaged. He's here, he's bought in, he's helping guys out, helping everybody improve, and he's constantly giving his guidance and his input.
And we saw Kyrie Irving got on the court yesterday for the first time. You played with some great players in the USA team this summer, and now getting a chance to step on the court with a guy like Kyrie Irving, you've obviously gone against him over the years. What is your first impression when you get on the floor and you're playing alongside Kyrie Irving?
Yeah, Kyrie is just he's a special talent. His the things that he can do on the basketball floor. There's only a handful of people that have played this game that can do what he does, and he's just an incredible player. But the thing about him too is that even though he is such a high caliber player, he comes in, he competes, and it doesn't matter who he's playing against, what he's doing. Could be a shooting drill, It could be a defensive shell drill. He's getting after it. He's competing. He's got really that competitive mindset. You know, he's definitely got that dog in him. He's trying to win in everything that he does, and that trickles down to everybody else. You know, he's going to be the leader of this team, and everybody's going to really be looking to him. But him having that mindset, that attitude, you know, is exactly what we need and exactly what you want out of your point guard.
How much easier does he make it for you or just other players on the floor?
I mean, that's a great
on
point.
Each possession.
Yeah, so, you know, because he is such a special talent, I think, you know, he's sort of like LeBron in the sense that people that play with him, he just raises their game so much. And that's when you know you have an exceptional player, when he makes everybody else that much better around him. He just makes the game easy, honestly. And a lot of it is because he is so good offensively, just being able to create for himself and for his teammates. You know, there's just going to be a lot of open opportunities just because everybody has to be so cognizant of him constantly.
We're taking a look at Joe Harris highlights as we speak with Joe here at the Nets training facility, part of Training Camp Live. Chris Carrino, Tim Capstraw, and Joe Harris with you. And Joe, we know that you are a player who we've seen get better as the years have gone along here. What are some of the things that you're working on? What are some of the new ingredients you're trying to put into your game to take your game to another level this year?
I'm just trying to be as complete of a basketball player as I can. Obviously, I know where my strengths lie. You know, my ability to shoot the ball, stretch the floor. That's going to be, you know, my constant with my game for sure. And, you know, I'm not going to try and do too much outside of myself where I know, you know, I'm kind of dipping into some sort of weaker areas. You know, I try to play to my strengths certainly, but there's a lot of other areas that you can impact the game, whether that's, you know, being active defensively, guarding your man, making things tough, sort of doing like the little glue guy type stuff, being on the glass, you know, little things like that. That's where I'm trying to be, you know, perfect, honestly. Like I go through games, and that's sort of on my checklist. Obviously, you know, the offense, the shooting, that sort of stuff, you know, that comes and goes, but there are a lot of things that got to remain constant. That's the defense, the rebounding, the little stuff like that.
Joe, last year the team had terrific chemistry, and you lost a few of the guys from that group. How does your role adjust now with the chemistry? And how about some of the newer players that have arrived, the Garrett Temples, the David Nwabas? How do they fit into just the Nets atmosphere?
Honestly, Sean and Kenny are so good just finding guys that plug in easily. You know, obviously we've been talking a lot about Kyrie and DeAndre, but every new player that's here, you mentioned David and Garrett, everybody just kind of plugs in seamlessly already to what the culture is here around this organization. Everybody's bought in, high character guys, and I think, you know, because the personalities are so similar across the board, we're all kind of cut from the same cloth. Very competitive guys, but unselfish. You know, guys are, you know, there's a genuine authenticity of caring for one another, you know, sacrificing for each other, being happy to see other people succeed, and I think that's what's important. That's what the Nets culture has kind of been built around.
Yeah, and that's something that I think when people from the outside look at it, there's always going to be that balance of balancing talent versus culture. But I think what's established here, and you've been a part of that, was that the culture is established right now, and it's guys will come in and they have to either fit into it, and you're going to find guys that you know through your research and through your intelligence gathering are guys that are going to fit into that.
Yep.
So, and occasionally you're going to have to step out of that a little bit to find a talented player, but you hope that what you have here already will sort of keep that person in line.
Yeah, definitely. No, that's 100% spot on. You know, I think a lot of times guys get labeled, you know, as certain personalities, and sometimes it's unfair just because of the environment that they're in. I think when the environment is conducive to being positive, unselfish, you know, that's what makes the game fun for people. And when you can play that way and come into an environment like that, that's already been established here in Brooklyn, and I think it helps, you know, we have a lot of the same coaches, we have a lot of the same core group of guys, we have, you know, primarily the same front office, you know, like a lot of that stuff has been kept the same around here, where, you know, the culture is established and it's ingrained and you see it every day, you know, and you walk around, and I think when that environment is that way, it's a little bit easier for guys to kind of feel that, to notice that, and to kind of get ingrained into themselves.
Joe, if I had we did this usually during training camp. You're going through the workouts. Is there a guy? Last year, I remember it was Karis LeVert. Whenever we said who stood out, who's a guy that's really been a pleasant surprise. Last year was to a man Karis LeVert, and we saw what kind of great season he had before he got injured. Is there somebody now that maybe we're not thinking about that has stood out to you, has had a great first week of camp?
Honestly, I think across the board, I've just been impressed to see, sometimes you get into training camp and it takes guys a little bit of time to kind of knock the rust off a little bit, find their rhythm, whatever it might be. And I think, it's because of the offseason that these guys have put in. Obviously I wasn't around for a lot of it, but when I was here, I saw how hard guys were getting after it, whether it was when they're in LA or out here in Brooklyn. Guys have been competing, getting better, and it shows. It's a sort of easy transition right into training camp. Guys are kind of firing at a high clip right now. I think just off the top of my head, obviously we had a scrimmage today. Spencer was playing with the second unit, and he dominated. And, obviously we all know that he's a great player, but, to see him kind of firing at this level, and he's done it up until this point, though, too. It's hard to say because it's like I think Spencer is an all-star caliber type player, 6th man of the year type player, but he stood out to me just up until this point and even today in the scrimmage.
Well, Joe Harris, we appreciate you joining us. Good luck this season. Get a little rest.
Yep.
And we'll good luck in China again.
Yes, sir.
Going back there, and we can't wait to see you out there on the court this year.
Yep. Thank you guys. Appreciate it.
That is Joe Harris. We are getting all the live coverage here from Nets training camp.
Thank you, buddy.
Joe, congratulations on everything. Do a great job this year. Capper, interesting that he talked about Spencer Dinwiddie, because you and I were just chatting prior to coming on the air here, and I know you watched the scrimmage today, and you remarked about how well Spencer Dinwiddie had looked.
The thing about Spencer Dinwiddie, he's always in such unbelievable condition. He is an amazingly conditioned athlete.
And maybe and when you talk to Sean Marks or Kenny Atkinson, they'll say he might be the best athlete on the team.
Best athlete on the team. You tend to want to get, obviously new players. You're so intrigued to watch them. But I tell you what, Chris, he's at a different level, I think, even this year. We've seen the ascension of Spencer Dinwiddie as a legitimate big-time NBA player. He's at he can run the show. He can play on the ball. He can play off the ball. I think he's going to be a vital part of this team.
And we saw last year there was that question of, D'Angelo Russell and Spencer Dinwiddie couldn't really share the court. I think it's different with a guy like Kyrie Irving. I think Spencer Dinwiddie and Kyrie Irving will complement each other on the floor.
Absolutely. I just think that the ability to break down a defense, both of those guys, and be able to be the other guy that could shoot the ball well, that could stretch it out and knock down shots, could create those creases that guys with that type of skill level, like a Kyrie Irving and his athletic ability, obviously, and Spencer Dinwiddie, along with Karis LeVert, there's a lot of playmaking ability on this net roster team, and that's why that's what makes it so difficult to defend this group, I think. I really feel that it's going to be a very hard team to defend. The creativity, the system with which Kenny Atkinson has put in over the years, and I'm sure they're going to tweak it a lot this year, but it's physical talent. If you have physical ability to make plays, you can get a lot done in this offense.
And you think of some of the areas of weakness last year. We saw it in the postseason. Joel Embiid gave the Nets a very difficult time in that playoff series. You almost wondered, would the Nets have to employ an old-fashioned center, a big guy, just to go up against Joel Embiid? Because you have to compete with him in the division, in the conference, maybe in the postseason. You're going to have to get past that guy. Well, they went out, and a guy we haven't really talked about so far yet, they went out and got a guy who I think physically can match up to Joel Embiid in DeAndre Jordan.
No, he can. I think he can match up with, Embiid, obviously, but he looks good. You know what I mean? Just physically and just his fitness level.
Yeah, he's coming in
We've
good
said
shape.
that a lot about players when they've come through this organization. That their fitness level seems at a whole nother level. And I think DeAndre Jordan is ready to make huge contributions in so many different ways. Whether it be a guy that's a physical presence, I think he's a vocal presence, and his leadership will be really be needed.
All right, Capper. Well, the Nets have their first preseason game coming up on Friday at Barclays Center. They're going to be taking on a team called Franca, which is a city in Brazil. It's one of the Brazilian teams there, and then it's off to China. Now, we will not be on the air, you and I, in the radio for preseason, but if you want to tune in, those games will be on NBA TV. You and I will be calling those games for NBA TV. So the Nets and the Lakers, highly anticipated games in China going up against LeBron James. Of course, the Nets' new ownership group led by Joe Tsai. It's an exciting time, and those will be interesting games to see and see how this new-look team comes together. Remember, it's not the old days when you had 6 or 7 preseason games. The Nets have a team against a game against a Brazilian team, 2 games in China, come in for 1 game at home, and then it's the season. I mean, it starts right away. So we're going to get to see these guys right away.
Exactly. And then, you're coming off a trip to China. That is not easy to return from. There are some challenges, but you can't help but be really excited about this entire Nets team.
All right, well, a beautiful summer-like day here in Sunset Park, Brooklyn, as the Nets put a wrap on training camp, get ready for the preseason. The opener is Friday. For the Capper, Tim Capstraw, I'm Chris Carrino from the HSS training facility here in Sunset Park, Brooklyn. This has been Training Camp Live.